Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I am very happy you are here today. Find a quiet place, take a slow breath, and let your mind travel with me. Today we are going to follow a very old story. It is not the story of one king, or one city, or one invention. It is the story of something we all use every day: clothing. Every morning, we choose clothes. Maybe we put on a shirt, maybe a jacket, maybe shoes, maybe a warm sweater. We do this so often that we do not think about it very much. But clothing has a long and amazing history. It protected people from cold and heat. It showed beauty. It showed work. It showed money. It showed culture. Sometimes it even showed dreams. So today, let us travel far back in time. Back to the first people. Back to caves, forests, rivers, deserts, farms, palaces, factories, and modern streets. Let us discover how clothing changed with human life. This is the real and interesting story of clothing. A very long time ago, people did not have shops. They did not have cotton shirts. They did not have buttons, zippers, or sewing machines. They lived close to nature. They walked through forests. They crossed cold lands. They slept near fire. They needed protection. The human body is not covered with thick fur like many animals. So people needed something extra. The first clothing was probably made from animal skins. People used skins and fur to stay warm. They also used leaves, grass, and bark in warmer places. These first clothes were simple. They were not made for fashion. They were made for life. A warm skin could help a person survive a cold night. A simple cover could protect skin from sun, wind, and sharp plants. Slowly, people learned to make these clothes better. They used stone tools to clean animal skins. They made holes with sharp bones. They used thin pieces of animal tendon like thread. They sewed skins together. This was a very important step. It meant people could make clothing that fit the body better. They could cover arms, legs, shoulders, and feet. Imagine one early family sitting near a fire. Outside, the wind is cold. Inside, someone is sewing a warm skin coat. The stitches are not perfect. The tools are simple, but the idea is powerful. This coat is more than clothing. It is care. It is protection. It is love. After many thousands of years, people began to farm. They stopped moving all the time. They built villages. They grew food. They kept animals. And clothing changed again. People learned that some plants and animals could give them fibers. A fiber is a thin piece of material. Many fibers together can become thread, and thread can become cloth. One of the most important plants was flax. Flax can make linen. Linen was used in ancient Egypt. Egypt was hot and dry. Linen was light and cool. This made it perfect for the Egyptian climate. People wore simple linen clothes. Workers wore plain linen. Rich people wore finer linen. Priests wore clean white linen for religious work. In ancient Egypt, clothing was often simple, but it had meaning. White linen showed cleanliness. Jewelry showed wealth. Sandals protected feet from hot ground. And makeup was also part of appearance. Men and women used oils and colors on the body. For them, clothing and beauty were connected with daily life, religion, and social position. Now let us travel to another part of the ancient world, to Mesopotamia, the land between two great rivers. People there also made cloth. They used wool from sheep. Wool was warm and strong. It could be spun into thread. It could be woven into fabric. In many ancient places, sheep were very important because they gave meat, milk, and wool. Weaving was one of the great inventions in clothing history. To weave means to cross threads over and under each other. It sounds simple, but it changed the world. With weaving, people could make larger pieces of cloth. They could make clothes, blankets, bags, and sails. Cloth became useful in homes, trade, and travel. Think about a weaver in an old village. She sits at a loom. A loom is a tool for weaving. Her hands move again and again, over and under, over and under. The work is slow, but slowly a piece of cloth appears. This cloth may become a dress, a wrap, a blanket for a child, or a gift for another family. In ancient China, another amazing material appeared: silk. Silk comes from the cocoon of a small insect called the silkworm. People in China learned how to take the fine silk thread and make beautiful cloth. Silk was soft, light, and shining. For a long time, China kept the secret of silk making. Silk became very valuable. Silk traveled far away on trade roads. These roads later became famous as the Silk Road. Merchants carried silk across mountains and deserts. People in other lands wanted it very much. Kings, queens, and rich families loved silk because it looked beautiful and felt special. A piece of cloth could travel farther than many people ever traveled. In ancient Greece, clothing was often made from simple rectangles of cloth. People wrapped and folded the cloth around the body. They used pins, belts, and folds to hold it in place. A Greek garment could look graceful and calm. It moved with the body. It was simple, but beautiful. In ancient Rome, clothing also showed who you were. The toga is one famous Roman garment. It was a large piece of cloth worn by Roman male citizens, but it was not easy to wear. It needed careful folding. It showed status. A person wearing a toga was saying, in a quiet way, "I belong to Rome." But not everyone wore grand clothing. Most people in the ancient world wore simple clothes for work. Farmers needed strong clothing. Soldiers needed protection. Travelers needed cloaks. Children needed clothes that were easy to move in. As always, clothing was connected to daily life. Then the world moved into the Middle Ages. In Europe, many people lived in villages. They worked on farms. Their clothes were usually made from wool or linen. Most clothes were plain. People often had only a few garments. They repaired them again and again. Nothing was wasted. In the Middle Ages, clothing could show social class very clearly. Rich people could wear fine fabrics and bright colors. Poor people wore rough cloth and natural colors. Some governments even made rules about clothing. These rules said who could wear certain colors, fabrics, or decorations. Clothing was not only about comfort, it was also about order and power. Color was very important. Before modern chemicals, bright colors were hard to make. Dye came from plants, insects, minerals, and other natural things. Some colors were expensive. Purple was one famous expensive color in the ancient and medieval world. So when someone wore a rich color, people noticed. Now let us move to Asia. In many Asian cultures, clothing had deep meaning. In Japan, the kimono became an important traditional garment. It was made from straight pieces of fabric. It was wrapped around the body and held with a belt called an obi. The color, cloth, and pattern could show season, age, event, and social meaning. In India, people wore garments like the sari and the dhoti for many centuries. A sari is a long piece of fabric wrapped beautifully around the body. It can be simple or very rich. It can be bright with color and pattern. Like many traditional clothes, it is both useful and artistic. In many parts of Africa, cloth also carried culture and identity. Different places had different weaving, dyeing, and wrapping traditions. Some fabrics used strong colors and repeated patterns. Clothing could show family, community, ceremony, and beauty. Cloth was not only something to wear, it was a language without words. Then came the Renaissance in Europe. This was a time of art, trade, and new ideas. Clothing became more detailed for wealthy people. Rich men and women wore fine fabrics, embroidery, lace, and jewels. Clothes could be wide, tall, stiff, or decorated. Fashion became a way to show taste, wealth, and connection to court life. But these clothes were often not comfortable. Some women wore tight bodices. Some men wore heavy layers. Some collars were large and stiff. In portraits from this time, people looked proud and elegant. But we can also imagine that moving, sitting, and breathing were not always easy. The history of clothing is full of this balance, comfort and beauty, need and status, body and society. People wanted clothes that helped them live, but they also wanted clothes that helped them be seen. Then, in the 1700s and 1800s, a huge change began. The Industrial Revolution. Machines changed how cloth was made. Before machines, spinning thread and weaving cloth took a long time. Many people worked by hand, but machines could spin and weave much faster. Factories began to make cloth in large amounts. Cotton became very important. Cotton cloth was lighter than wool and easier to wash. But the history of cotton also has painful parts. In some places, cotton was connected with unfair labor and human suffering. So when we tell the story of clothing, we must remember both the beauty and the difficulty. Machines made fabric cheaper. More people could buy more clothes. Styles began to change faster. Shops sold ready-made items. People no longer needed every garment to be made at home or by a local tailor. Clothing became part of a growing modern world. The sewing machine was another great invention. In the 1800s, sewing machines made clothing production much faster. A dress, a coat, or a shirt could be made with less hand sewing. This changed homes, workshops, and factories. It also changed the work of many women, because sewing had often been part of women's daily labor. Around this time, clothing also became more connected to city life. People moved to towns and cities for work. Office workers, factory workers, servants, teachers, and shopkeepers all needed different clothes. A person's clothing could tell others about their job. A uniform could show that someone was a nurse, a soldier, a student, or a railway worker. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, fashion magazines became popular. Pictures of clothing traveled faster. People could see styles from big cities like Paris and London. A woman in a smaller town could look at a magazine and dream about a new dress. Fashion became a story shared across distance. Then came the 20th century, and clothing changed very quickly. Wars, work, sport, movies, music, and youth culture all changed what people wore. During difficult times, clothing became simpler and more practical. When fabric was limited, people repaired clothes and used less material. After those times, fashion often became more playful again. Women's clothing changed a lot in the 20th century. In many countries, women began to wear shorter skirts, simpler dresses, and later trousers more often. These changes were connected to work, movement, education, and freedom. Clothing showed that life was changing. Men's clothing also changed. Suits became common for business. Work clothes became stronger and more practical. Sports clothes became part of daily life. People began wearing clothes that were once only for exercise or work. One famous example is jeans. Jeans began as strong work pants. Workers needed trousers that could last. Over time, jeans moved from mines and farms to city streets. Movie stars wore them. Young people wore them. Today, jeans are worn around the world. They are simple, strong, and familiar. Another famous item is the t-shirt. At first, it was used as underwear or simple work clothing. Later, it became an everyday shirt. People printed words, pictures, bands, teams, and ideas on t-shirts. A very simple piece of clothing became a way to speak. In the late 20th century, fashion became global. A style could begin in one city and soon appear in many countries. Television, music videos, films, and later the internet made fashion travel very fast. People mixed styles from different places. Traditional clothing stayed important, but everyday clothing became more international. Today, clothing is everywhere. There are large stores, small brands, second-hand shops, online shops, local makers, and luxury fashion houses. Some clothes are cheap, some are very expensive. Some are made to last for years. Some are made to be worn only a few times. This gives us many choices, but also many questions. One important question today is this: how can clothing be kinder to people and to the planet? Making clothes uses water, energy, land, and labor. Some clothes travel through many countries before they reach a shop. Some workers are paid fairly, some are not. Some fabrics are natural. Some are made from oil-based materials. Some clothes are repaired and loved. Others are thrown away too quickly. Because of this, many people are thinking again about clothing in a deeper way. They ask, do I need this? Can I repair it? Can I buy second-hand? Can I choose better quality? Can I respect the people who made it? These are modern questions, but in a way, they bring us back to the old world, when clothing was precious, when people repaired it, when every piece took time. The story of clothing is really the story of human life. When people were cold, they made warm clothes. When they farmed, they made cloth from plants and animals. When they traded, silk and cotton crossed the world. When they built cities, clothing showed jobs and status. When machines arrived, clothing became faster and cheaper. When modern life changed, clothing changed with it. And now, when we open our closet, we can see history there. A cotton shirt carries the story of farming and factories. A wool sweater carries the story of sheep, spinning, and winter. A silk scarf carries the memory of ancient China and long trade roads. A pair of jeans carries the story of work, strength, and modern style. Even a simple button has a long history. So tomorrow, when you choose your clothes, pause for a moment. Look at the fabric. Look at the color. Feel the thread under your fingers. That small piece of clothing is not really small. It is part of a very long human journey. A journey of survival, creativity, beauty, work, and change. Clothing began as protection, but it became much more. It became culture. It became memory. It became art. It became identity. It tells the world something about us, and it tells us something about the world. Thank you for listening, my friends. I hope this story made English feel calm and clear for you. You are doing very well. Every story you hear helps your English grow a little more. Please tell me in the comments what story you would like next. And if you enjoyed this gentle journey, please like, subscribe, and come back for another story. Keep learning, Keep listening and be proud of your English journey.